I think, customer centricity is at the core of digital transformation. But I think when we talk about digital transformation, we have to look wide and large. It's not just about changing individual services, although, of course, so many things are now online. It's actually revolutionising how we do stuff, and we do stuff differently.
Hello, my name is Peter Lavers, and welcome to the Customer Centricity Corner, brought to you by Customer Attuned Ltd. In this series, I'm discussing the why, how, and what of customer centricity in the business-to-business sector. What is it? Why does it matter? And how can B2B benefit from being more customer-centric? Our subject today is digital transformation, and I'm delighted to introduce William Makower from Panlogic Ltd. William is the founder and chairman of Panlogic. He has been involved with transforming international bodies, government agencies, not-for-profit organisations, and private sector businesses for over 20 years. Thanks for joining us, William. As someone who's been helping companies on this journey for many years, what do you see as the drivers behind this dash for digital transformation that's happening at the moment? And where does customer centricity fit within these drivers?
Hi, Peter. Nice to meet you, and thanks for the opportunity to come and talk to you. I think, customer centricity is at the core of digital transformation. But I think when we talk about digital transformation, we have to look wide and large. It's not just about changing individual services, although, of course, so many things are now online. It's actually revolutionising how we do stuff, and we do stuff differently. And an obvious one is obviously from the pandemic. We don't travel to work. The change to our working day, our change to our lives has changed dramatically. And it could only have happened because we've got all these amazing online tools. We carry around a laptop or an iPad, and that is our office nowadays. We don't have filing cabinets. We don't have people coming in to see us in the same way as we used to. Of course, human contact is hugely important. And of course, when I think about our government work, then the customer centricity is absolutely at the centre, and there are lots of reasons as to why that might be. But let's think about some of the things that we do now online, which we never used to do, which has digital transformation at its core. Digital tax. We're now all do our tax returns for businesses online. Our business rates, they're all done online. All the bits of company's house information, all the filing, all the charity commission stuff, all of it's online. All our regulatory compliance is completed online. So government has changed dramatically over a relatively short period, especially for slow-moving public services. We design all our documents, by the way, online. People who've almost given up with wet signatures and scans. They've pretty well gone away. We just have a form and we click it, and we accept that now as a formal signature. So customer centricity allows all this because we're thinking about the business customer. And there are particular reasons. I've thought of three. I've called them A, B, and C. I think the first one is, to make life easy for myself, the first one is auditing. We have moved into a digital transformed world because we can now gather evidence in a uniform way. That provides process transparency. It allows everyone to have a uniform way that they approach something, and then it's much easier to audit that. It's much easier to find the gaps. It's much easier to find the efficiencies if we've got a uniform way of doing it. When we're on paper, people wrote lots of different things. Free-form text is very difficult for computers to pick up and process. So that's my A, is auditing. I think the second one, business efficiency. That's my B, business efficiencies. So partly this is about market responsiveness. It's so much easier for us all, business in a business-to-business content, to respond. And I think particularly here about how government goes around tendering. That is now completed through an online process. There is no, as there used to be, as you and I would remember, printing out vast reams of paper, putting them in double envelopes. The outside envelope couldn't say this, the inside envelope had to say that. It had to be hand delivered. I mean, all of that's just disappeared, thank goodness. But it also allows for much more user centricity for business owners, because we're able to adapt things in very small niches. So we're able to adapt our services, adapt how we respond to businesses and to certain parts of certain types and parts of businesses in an atomic way, because we can say, if you're this type of business, go here. If you're that type of business, go here. If you're that type of business, go somewhere else. And the third one around business efficiency is, of course, collaboration. My business nowadays employs very few people. Our people are spread all around the world. They're contractors, they're specialists in different areas of technology. And that allows us to collaborate in a far more efficient way without employing everyone. So that's my B. And then my C, my last one is cost reduction. Now, of course, cost reduction is hugely important to businesses, and we can all see it. I mean, we don't, as I said earlier, we don't have rents necessarily in the way we used to. We don't spend a lot of time, an hour, 2 hours commuting for a coffee to come back to the office and then go out in the afternoon and do that all over again. But there's also process uniformity, and there's reduction in the time to get into market, and all those things support businesses as they drive for efficiencies and reduce their costs, and therefore be able to increase their profits and their relationship with their customers.
Thanks, William. I think that's a really succinct way of saying, the key drivers that digital transformation is on the agenda of pretty much every medium to large organisation that we come across, and I guess what we have to come back to is to be true to those actual drivers. And I'm glad that cost reduction was a C rather than A, because sometimes sometimes that is the top of the list, and sometimes the customer is forgotten. So so those are the kind of the broad drivers. What do you think, and how do you think that the challenges of digital transformation differ for business to business companies compared to the consumer world? And there's a general kind of feeling that the business to consumer world is ahead of B2B when it comes to digital transformation. Do you agree with that, or what do you think are those differences?
I think it's very easy. It's much easier, let's put it that way, in a business to consumer way, in a business to consumer process, to think about the consumer, because at the end of the day, they're the customer. So it's much easier to consider what they need, do your research, go out and listen to customers. I think in a business, it's quite difficult. And what can happen quite easily is business can be quite inward looking, and they think about the terminology that they're interested in. And that makes them less outward looking, obviously. It also means they get caught up in their own process. And I think inside a business, and when you're speaking to business customers, you need to, again, exactly in the same way, go out and talk to them. I think you also have to be quite brave. Business to consumers businesses have had to change. There's no question about that. They moved online. In a business to business context, it can have a dramatic impact of who's employed, where they're deployed. I think also if we think about recruitment, when we recruited people before, we thought an awful lot about aptitude. Could they do the job? There was a little bit of attitude, but of course the person was sitting opposite you and around you. So attitude was perhaps less important because they were going to be around their managers day to day. Nowadays, when a lot of people work remotely, then the issue of attitude and what I think is all around trust is hugely important, because you're going to have to trust that individual to be able to work efficiently, appropriately, represent you in a remote context when they're not around you in the single office. So I think employment practices have changed. We probably haven't understood how much they've changed. They've changed dramatically. And the level of trust that we need to have with our employees fundamentally different. I think there always was trust, but it's a different matrix of trust than perhaps we had before. I think the other thing I suppose is around innovation, which I'm very interested in, and we, obviously we do a huge amount of innovation. I'm very disappointed with the government removing the R&D tax credits, all but a little bit for small businesses, because I think small businesses drive a huge amount of innovation, especially in the technology space. But the speed of innovation through technology is fantastic, and that's in part because we don't have the same capital requirements to innovate as before. So it's much more diffused. There are many, many more people doing it. And if you take my point earlier about collaboration, you've got many more brains involved in it without the cost that you would have had before.
So thanks very much, William. That's great insight, and lots there for our viewers and listeners to take in. For me, your final point there is a key point. Is how, and it's something for people to think about. Is in this new environment, this new because it's not going to go back to as it was. You know, how do we ensure that trust is being built in this digital age and digital transformation? You know, is this massive program that's going on that somebody else is doing, is it actually building and helping to build and maintain trust across business to business relationships? And that's something for, I think, all of us to bear in mind in when we're changing things to make things more efficient. Like you said, we mustn't lose that in B2B, that personal aspect, you know, of people still buying from people and people still needing to go back to people for their servicing requirements. That's really interesting. Thank you. So that concludes our discussion today. Please go to our website, which is customerattuned.com. And that has links to William's company, Panlogic, the rest of this series, and also it shows you what else we do as Customer Attuned. Our purpose is to build a culture of customer centricity based on trust to establish sustainable, mutually beneficial and profitable B2B relationship. And I hope what you've heard today will help you do your digital transformations in a more customer-centric way. Thank you for listening, and thanks again to William Makower from Panlogic for being our speaker today.